think about your smartphone for a second. Every time you open an app, send a text, or even just browse a web page, there's this tiny bit of temporary data that gets stored in the background.
Right, yeah, the cache bloat.
Exactly. It's called cache bloat. And for a long time, you don't even notice it at all. Like, the phone seems completely fine.
But all those invisible lines of code are just, accumulating, quietly eating up the memory.
Right. Until one day, you just tap the screen to do something super simple, and the entire system violently crashes.
It's an inevitability, really, just disguised as a sudden failure. I mean, the architecture was buckling long before the screen actually went black.
Yeah, and that invisible, inevitable crash is, honestly, the perfect metaphor for what we are unpacking today. Welcome to today's deep dive.
Thanks! I'm really excited for this one. We are pulling excerpts directly from Freida McFadden's gripping thriller novel, Dear Debbie, alongside our own literary analysis notes.
Our mission in this deep dive is to figure out exactly how this author builds an invisible trap for the reader. We're going to look at how she uses narrative structure, shifting perspectives, and the illusion of domestic tranquility to just craft a masterclass in psychological escalation.
And at the center of this architectural marvel is a protagonist who really forces the reader to constantly reevaluate their own moral boundaries. I mean, we are talking about a character who weaponizes her own perceived insignificance.
Totally. So I want you, the listener, to think about your own daily frustrations. Because we all have that cash bloat accumulating in our lives, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Like a micromanaging boss who takes credit for your work.
Yeah.
Teenagers who treat you like the hired help.
Yeah.
Or that one incredibly smug neighbor who always manages to subtly insult you.
We swallow those indignities to just keep the peace.
Yeah, but today we're taking a wild, totally cathartic ride into what happens when someone refuses to swallow them anymore.
And the author spends a really significant portion of the opening chapters meticulously calibrating the reader's empathy. McFadden introduces us to Debbie Mullen.
Right. She's a 40-something housewife married to an unambitious accountant named Cooper.
Exactly. And she writes a quaint, localized advice column called Dear Debbie for the Hingham household paper. And, on the surface, her life is just a monument to passive suffering.
Okay, let's unpack this, because we need to look at the sheer volumes of indignity she faces. It really is a systemic overload.
It's a lot.
It is. We have her oldest daughter, Lexi, who literally enforces a household rule where Debbie isn't allowed to speak to her in the morning.
Which is just brutal.
Right. Lexi's also dating this terrible vaping teenager named Zane, whom Debbie correctly suspects is stealing their alcohol. Then you have her youngest daughter, Izzy, who gets unfairly kicked off the soccer team.
Yes, by this deeply unsettling coach, Robert Pike. Notice how the narrative boxes her in. The disrespect isn't just coming from her family. It permeates her entire community.
This indignity bleeds into her neighborhood and her career, too. Take her garden, for example.
Oh, the garden scene.
Yeah, Debbie has poured her soul into her rose garden, and she's scheduled to have this lovely little photo shoot for Home Gardening magazine. It's like her one sliver of personal triumph.
And her neighbor, Joe Dolan, physically flags down the photographers in the street. She hijacks the shoot, showing off her own garden instead.
It's so mean. To top it all off, Debbie's boss at the newspaper, Garrett, fires her.
Yeah.
Simply because she used her advice column to tell a woman to leave her financially abusive husband.
Which was actually good advice, but by stacking these specific grievances, McFadden is employing a highly effective storytelling technique.
Yeah, you really feel for her.
Right. If the book opened with Debbie committing a serious felony, you would instinctively recoil. The narrative distance between you and the protagonist would just be too vast.
Totally.
But by subjecting her to these arrogant, dismissive figures, the predatory coach, the condescending neighbor, the misogynistic boss, the author is actively eroding your moral resistance.
You literally start begging for a system crash.
Yeah.
I was reading through the early excerpts in our notes, and I kept wondering, does the author want us to pity Debbie, or are we supposed to recognize her as unhinged from page 1?
That's the million-dollar question.
Because nobody can absorb that much daily humiliation without a blocked valve eventually giving way.
The genius of the setup is that McFadden doesn't let the valve give way all at once. She provides this psychological transition zone for the reader. She shows us the pressure escaping in microscopic controlled bursts before the actual explosions begin.
Which brings us to the drafts folder.
Yes, my favorite part.
We've established that Debbie is accumulating all this psychological cash bloat, right?
Yeah.
The drafts folder on her computer is where we see the fatal error code being written.
It's a hidden directory of responses to her Dear Debbie letters that she never actually publishes.
It is so darkly comedic.
Yeah.
I have an excerpt from our notes highlighting one of these drafts. So, a local woman writes in, complaining that her husband absolutely hates her knitting habit. In the published column, Debbie probably offers some bland advice about compromise. But in the hidden draft, she writes, have you considered taking your most durable scarf, wrapping it tightly around his neck, and pulling until the complaining finally stops?
It's incredible. And in another draft, she casually advises a mother to sneak out and cut her daughter's terrible boyfriend's brake lines.
Yes, which is wild.
The lethal logic is already fully formed there. If we connect this to the bigger picture, she is actively theorizing violence as a practical solution to suburban annoyances.
But theory quickly becomes practice. The transition from passive suffering to active retaliation is where the pacing of the novel just takes off.
It really accelerates.
She doesn't just fantasize about revenge anymore. She steps out her front door in the middle of the night and executes it. And I love how she uses the tools of her domestic imprisonment to do it.
The methodology is key here. I mean, she unleashes a swarm of Japanese beetle traps to systematically decimate Joe Dolan's stolen rose garden.
It's brilliant.
It's an act of pure, targeted karma utilizing basic gardening supplies.
Then she escalates to Coach Pike, the creepy soccer coach.
Hmm.
Debbie bakes these innocent-looking tinfoil-wrapped brownies, but she laces them with opium.
Opium that she secretly grew in her own garden, completely disguised as common windflowers.
She gives him the brownies, waits for him to pass out, finds his hidden house key, and breaks into his home. She plants a fake key and a stash of money to frame him, then tips off the school.
The authorities arrest him for secretly filming the girls' locker room. It's a devastatingly effective strike, and importantly, one the reader fully supports because Coach Pike is an objective predator.
Exactly. But then we get to Zane, the terrible teenage boyfriend. He's blackmailing Debbie's daughter, Lexi, with illicit photos.
So Debbie takes the advice from her own drafts folder.
Yeah, she physically cuts his brake lines. Zane crashes his car into the school and breaks his neck.
The narrative utility of this escalation is fascinating. I mean, we are watching her cross from property damage to framing to actual attempted murder.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. I need to push back on something.
Okay, go for it.
When we look at this string of crimes, there's a temptation to label Debbie as this elite, untouchable criminal mastermind, like James Bond or something.
Sure.
But she isn't an assassin. She isn't a trained spy. Her actual superpower is something much more depressing. She is a middle-aged mom. Society has completely conditioned people to look right through her.
That is such a great point.
Later in the story, she literally walks straight into a college frat house, and the kid at the door just lets her in because she looks like someone's mother dropping off laundry.
That is a crucial observation. Her invisibility is her primary camouflage. McFadden is weaponizing the reader's own societal biases here.
We totally underestimate her.
Exactly. The characters in the book underestimate the suburban housewife, and to an extent we do too. We assume she lacks the capacity for this level of calculated destruction simply because of her demographic.
We've established that Debbie's invisibility is her camouflage. But, camouflage only works if people are looking the wrong way, which perfectly explains why McFadden drastically shifts the narrative structure right when Debbie's crimes start escalating. We transition from a single POV revenge story into a complex web of deception featuring multiple narrators.
The introduction of the unreliable narrator multiplied. By bringing in chapters from the perspectives of her husband Cooper and one named Harley, the author creates a deliberate illusion of perspective.
Let's look at Cooper's chapters first, because they are wild. He is acting incredibly suspicious.
So shady.
He's constantly hiding his phone screen, sleeping on the couch, and sneaking around the house at all hours. He genuinely believes Debbie's the one having an affair.
And why does he think that?
Because Debbie actually coded her own family tracking app called Findly, and Cooper checks it to see her sneaking out to Weymouth and the shipyard at 2 in the morning.
He is completely misinterpreting her vigilantism as infidelity. It's a brilliant, dramatic irony. We, the audience, know she is out there destroying rose gardens and cutting brake lines.
Yeah.
But her own husband assumes she's just cheating on him.
And then we have Harley. Harley's perspective is infuriating, but so compelling.
She's quite the character.
She really is. She is a younger, fitness-obsessed woman whose explicit MO is targeting married men. She firmly believes she is currently having an affair with Cooper.
Right, and she is so brazen about it.
She intentionally befriends Debbie at the gym. She infiltrates Debbie's stuffy local book club purely to gather intel on her arrival. Harley's entire goal is to force a dramatic confrontation, blow up the marriage, and claim Cooper for herself.
This is classic suspense architecture. The author places the reader above a maze, watching these two distinct storylines speed toward a seemingly inevitable, catastrophic collision.
You're literally just holding your breath.
You are just waiting for Harley to drop the bomb on Debbie.
But when that collision finally happens, it is a complete narrative sleight of hand. Harley invites Debbie over to her apartment for dinner, fully planning to spring the cheating husband reveal.
The tension is crazy.
The door opens,
Yeah.
the man walks in,
Yeah.
and it isn't Cooper at all. It's Cooper's coworker, Jesse. Jesse had been using Cooper's name and identity to sleep with Harley this entire time.
It's a masterful subversion of expectations.
Okay, I have to be honest. When Jesse walked through that door, my immediate thought was that McFadden cheated.
Really?
Yeah, it felt like she outright lied to us to get a cheap gasp.
Yeah.
Tell me I'm wrong here. Because it felt incredibly manipulative as a reader to be told for chapters that this woman was sleeping with Cooper, only for the author to say, surprise, it's a different guy.
Well, you're not wrong to feel manipulated, but no, the author didn't cheat. She simply adhered strictly to the internal reality of her POV characters.
I guess that's true.
Think about the psychological trick at play here. When you read a chapter from Harley's perspective, the narrative text calls the man Cooper because Harley truly believes he is Cooper.
Right?
McFadden is exposing how blindly we trust the narrator of a story. We accept their reality as objective truth.
So the author forces us to look so hard at this failing suburban marriage that we completely miss the identity theft happening just off stage.
Exactly. It highlights how subjective our reality is. The reader's assumptions are shattered at the exact same microsecond that the character's assumptions are. It's a synchronized system crash for both the audience and the cast.
So what does this all mean? The storylines have violently collided in Harley's apartment. We have Debbie, we have Harley, and we have Jesse, who has just walked in.
And now we've reached the absolute climax of the novel.
Because we quickly learn that Debbie didn't just stumble into this awkward dinner party. This brings us to the actual mechanics of her overarching master plan. Why is Jesse the ultimate target?
This is where the long game is finally revealed, and the true depth of Debbie's cash bloat is fully exposed. It goes back much, much further than a stolen gardening photo shoot.
Debbie drops her darkest secret. Decades ago, long before she was writing advice columns in Hingham, she was a brilliant computer science student at MIT.
Wow.
Yeah. But she dropped out and abandoned her entire trajectory after surviving a horrific sexual assault at the Zeta Pi frat house. The perpetrator was a frat boy who went by the name Hutch.
And Hutch is Jesse.
Yeah, Hutch is Jesse. Debbie recognized him. This entire string of crimes we've been tracking wasn't just a housewife snapping over daily annoyances.
No, not at all.
It was an elaborate, terrifyingly precise algorithm designed to corner and destroy him. The narrative reveals that Debbie had already broken into her husband's boss's house, a man named Ken Bryant, and shot him dead. And she used Jesse's gun to do it.
A weapon she methodically stole after making a copy of Ken's house key. The preparation is staggering.
It's chilling.
Yeah.
And now, the trap snaps shut in Harley's apartment. Jesse drinks from his water bottle and almost immediately passes out. Why? Because Debbie had spiked it with the same homegrown opium she used on the soccer coach.
She doesn't miss a beat.
So picture this scene. You have an unconscious Jesse on the floor, a terrified Harley who realizes she's caught in something way beyond an affair, and Debbie holding the stolen gun.
It's incredibly tense.
And Debbie raises the weapon and shoots Harley in the head. She kills her outright. Then Debbie places the gun into the unconscious Jesse's hand, physically forces his linked finger to pull the trigger, and fires a shot into the ceiling to ensure his hand is covered in gunshot residue.
She locks the narrative from every conceivable angle. By doing this, she frames Jesse for a murder-suicide regarding Harley,
Right.
while simultaneously tying him to the murder of Ken Bryant, especially since Jesse was already under suspicion for embezzling from Ken's firm.
It's flawless execution. And just outside the apartment, her actual husband, Cooper, finally arrives.
Yeah.
He's tracked her car location.
Oh, poor Cooper.
He is absolutely terrified that his wife has completely lost her mind and become a murderer. But Debbie just calmly walks out the front door, leaving the framed crime scene behind her.
It's wild.
And in this incredibly tense moment of truth, they finally confess their secrets to each other. Cooper admits that his shady behavior, the hidden phone, the late-night absences, was just him attending AA meetings for alcoholism. He was simply too ashamed to tell her.
It is a beautiful, tragic irony that anchors the climax. His grand secret was born of shame and a desperate desire to heal and be a better partner.
Hmm.
Her secret was born of decades-old trauma and a calculated desire for absolute scorched earth destruction.
But I have to ask about the moral implications of this flawless execution.
Yeah.
Up until the climax, McFadden calibrates the reader to cheer for Debbie.
Of course.
She protects her daughter from a blackmailer, she stops a predatory coach. But Harley was manipulative, yes. She actively pursued married men. But she was just a pawn in Jesse's identity theft. Did Debbie cross the line into being an irredeemable villain the moment she pulled the trigger on Harley?
That is the exact uncomfortable question the author wants you to wrestle with. What's fascinating here is this exploration of moral dissent. McFadden expertly manipulates our shifting compass.
We definitely justified it early on.
We justified Debbie's early actions because the targets were bad people. But by the end, Debbie justifies murdering Harley in cold blood simply because Harley is a terrible person who ruins marriages.
Which is a huge leap.
The narrative challenges you to pinpoint the exact moment where the pursuit of justice rots into pure villainy. Is it when she drugs someone? When she frames them? Or only when the shrapnel hits a bystander?
It almost makes you feel complicit as a reader. We wanted the pressure valve to blow. We cheered when the code started executing.
Right.
We just didn't expect her to catch Harley in the crossfire.
Precisely. The author forces you to confront the reality of the vengeance you were rooting for.
Which brings us to the epilogue, set 1 year later. And it seems to suggest that sometimes a flawlessly written virus doesn't get caught. Crime in this universe really does pay.
It really does.
Cooper's new independent accounting firm is thriving. Debbie has actually monetized her vigilantism. She coded and sold an app called Punish Your Husband, which is incredibly on the nose.
So on the nose.
Right. And she sells it for enough money to completely pay for Lexi's college tuition at Schmarford. And Jesse, the man who ruined her early life. He's serving 2 life sentences and is being brutally beaten by inmates in prison. The book heavily implies that Debbie arranged these beatings through her expanding network.
She remains the invisible hand, controlling the environment even behind bars.
And the final detail is just brilliant. Debbie is secretly working with Cindy. If you remember, Cindy is Ken Bryant's ex-wife, the woman from the very beginning of the book who Debbie advised to leave her financially abusive marriage.
For the advice that got Debbie fired.
Exactly. Cindy now works at the gym, and the two of them are quietly protecting each other. It shows that Debbie's vigilante network isn't shutting down. The cash bloat is gone, and the new system is running perfectly.
It leaves us with a protagonist who has achieved total victory but at the cost of her own soul. The mechanics of McFadden's storytelling take a highly relatable scenario, feeling unheard, unappreciated, invisible, and twist it into an unpredictable thriller.
It really is a ride.
It works so well because it relies on hidden motives, shifting perspectives, and the ultimate unreliability of our own assumptions as readers.
So, as we wrap up, think about how often you blindly trust the people passing through your own life. Look at the quiet neighbor, meticulously watering their lawn. Look at your mild-mannered coworker who never speaks up in meetings. Look at your own spouse sitting across the dinner table. How much do you truly know about what they are capable of if pushed past their breaking point?
It makes you wonder.
What secret drafts might they be hiding on their laptops right now? We started this deep dive talking about how a system crashes under invisible weight. Maybe the most dangerous threats aren't the ones announcing themselves with loud errors. Maybe they are just quiet, invisible people patiently waiting for the right moment to finally execute their code.
And that is the thought that will definitely keep you up at night.